human experience is incredible. As humans, we have the potential to undergo a range of different things in the course of our lives. Some people have it easy, and others not so much. There have been many people who have survived insane and harsh conditions with no real explanation as to how it could have happened. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at 3 people who managed to survive in the most unusual situations. Alaska man who survives in the snow. Can you imagine surviving for 3 weeks with almost no food or water in the snow? Most people wouldn't make it, but a man by the name of Tyson Steele did. He was living in a small cabin in the woods, northwest of Anchorage, Alaska. After living there for a few months, he made a small mistake that could have been fatal. While using his wood stove, he sent a spark out through the chimney and it managed to land on the roof of his home. He didn't realize what had happened until early in the morning when he had awoken to drips of plastic. When he made it outside, he saw his house was entirely in flames. In an attempt to salvage whatever he could, he went back to grab blankets and his rifle. He had a brown Labrador named Phil, who he believed escaped out of the house during the fire. To his dismay, he realized Phil had been caught in the flames only when he heard the dog's cries. He explained the pain and anguish he felt for his beloved dog, describing his scream being so loud and agonizing. Once the fire had settled, Steele went through his shell of a home to collect whatever food was still intact. Unfortunately, most of the canned goods had exploded due to the heat. He found a few cans, and despite the smoke taste, he was happy to have any food for survival. He then created a makeshift tent from a tarpaulin that was inside the cabin and tried to build a dome around the stove. With temperatures below zero, completely alone with no one nearby and surrounded by snow, it is an absolute miracle that he was able to survive. When asked about his techniques in surviving, he explained that he had never had any formal training and had simply spent a lot of time outdoors. Besides that, he had watched a few YouTube videos over the years. So how was he found? After an unusual length of time passed with no contact between Steele and his family, the police went looking for him. Luckily, he was able to keep his wood stove burning with tree bark and a candle he had on him, and used the ash to write SOS in large letters. The authorities were able to successfully rescue him after 3 weeks, taking him back to safety in a helicopter. He went to stay with his family afterwards and spoke about his excitement to spend time with their dogs to help him heal. There's no doubt that many people would not be able to survive this kind of situation. Was Steele lucky, or had he made all of the right moves? No one can be too sure, but we're more than glad he made it out alive. Alexander Kovalev. Going for a hike is a fairly common practice. After all, thousands of people hike each day. It can be a wonderful way to get in touch with nature and enjoy the beauty that Mother Nature has provided us with. But we don't often consider the possibility of something going wrong. Many people die in forests and wilderness of any kind on a regular basis with no reason to explain how they ended up there. Luckily, 54-year-old Alexander Kovalev wasn't one of those people. The taiga forest in Siberia is extremely vast and gets covered with meters of snow each year. For that reason, most people avoid the forest at that time of year. The chances of survival are slim to none when you consider all of the factors at play. Kovalev was working in a Siberian village in September 2017 when he went missing. His truck was left with a tank full of gas and his glasses were inside. Leaving his truck behind with blurry vision didn't make much sense. He wasn't seen for 2 weeks and people began to worry. Eventually, he mysteriously appeared from the taiga forest with frostbite all over his legs. He was hospitalized, and when later asked about what had happened, he refused to talk about it. He was traumatized by the experience and he wasn't able to provide any answers. His own children tried to understand and asked what he was doing in the forest to begin with, and he told them that he didn't know. What's even more shocking about this already shocking survival is that he was in an area that's known to be home to brown bears, black bears, wolves, and the endangered Amur tigers. The fact that he was able to successfully survive 2 weeks without supplies in the middle of winter and surrounded by vicious animals is hard to wrap your head around. Do you think Kovalev went into the forest on purpose? Was he mentally sane when he made his way into the forest? Since he's refusing to talk, it's difficult to say, but no one in their right mind would embark on a journey in those conditions. Keith Parkins. Our last mysterious survival took place back in 1952. A 2-year-old boy named Keith Parkins was in Ritter, Oregon, with his family visiting his grandparents. His grandfather lived on a remote ranch that was surrounded by forests. Keith was playing out in the yard on his own, and his grandfather kept coming back to check on him every few minutes. When he looked out the window and couldn't see Keith, he panicked and ran outside looking for him. He searched the area with no luck, and when the evening rolled around, everyone was very concerned. The police arranged a search party, and they looked all night. Luckily, they stumbled upon Keith in the morning, laying face down on a frozen pond, unconscious, but still alive. To make matters even weirder, he was found 8 miles from his grandfather's house. His jacket was off and his clothes were ripped, but there were no signs of physical injury. When taking his age and the terrain into account, it would have taken him approximately 20 hours to make it where he was found. To survive that distance in the dark of night in the winter would have been nearly impossible, so theorists got to work. Many suggested that he may have been abducted because that would have been the only way he could have travelled so far over the period of time. Unfortunately, since Keith was only 2 years old, he struggled to provide the police or his family with much information. As he grew older, he didn't have any memory of the night, so it still remains a mystery today. The possibility of Keith's abduction makes the most sense, but it raises a few questions. If he was abducted, why was he left behind? Why were his clothes ripped, but he was left unharmed? How did he survive the cold weather without a jacket? Keith was extremely fortunate to be found unconscious. However, experts still can't understand how he was able to survive the night. Do you have any theories on what could have happened to Keith that night? With no memories to rely on, we may never find the missing piece to the puzzle. It's interesting to look at these stories and think about how you could react if you were in their position. Would you come out alive, or would you not make it past a few hours? As humans, our ability to survive in absurd situations is phenomenal. Some people are able to escape death and continue living their lives as if nothing had happened. Others may not even remember their near loss of life experience, but were lucky enough to survive it anyway. We'll never know what would happen if we were thrown into any one of these situations, but it's comforting to know that even in the most devastating of situations, survival is possible. Just looking at these 3 cases, it's clear that we as a human race are tenacious and resilient when it comes to keeping ourselves alive. But what do you make of these 3 survivors? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.